toxic, with hosts Naga Munchetty and Charlie Steyert falling out spectacularly. In the Daily Mail tomorrow, doubts over the Lucy Letby conviction. Also, they continue with that theme. And the doubts were so shocking that I was stumped for words. Joining me this evening on the panel, I'm joined tonight by GB News contributor and middle-aged man Will Kingston, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell and the comedian Paul Cox. A big hour of breaking news and tomorrow's newspapers coming up. And we're live in Canada next, of course, as well. But first, let's get your news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Ben, thank you. Here's the latest. At 2 minutes past 11, Iran and Israel are continuing to exchange ballistic missiles for a third consecutive day. At least 224 people have been killed in Iran since Israel began its offensive on Friday. Tens of them are reported to be children after residential buildings were flattened by the strikes in Tehran. In the last hour, it's been reported the chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard and his deputy have been killed in the latest attacks. Overnight, at least 10 people were killed, including 3 children, and more than 140 injured in Israel. It's reported 5 of those victims were Ukrainian nationals who were living in the country after fleeing war in their homeland. Israeli officials say their bodies will be flown back to Ukraine once airspace reopens. Well, G7 leaders are planning to issue a joint statement on the conflict in the Middle East, calling for de-escalation. The Prime Minister, alongside the other representatives, are arriving in Calgary in Canada for the summit. The crossfire between Iran and Israel is set to dominate discussions, but trade, energy security and Russia's war in Ukraine will also be high on the agenda. The last time Canada hosted, President Donald Trump left the summit before denouncing the then Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, as very dishonest. Well, Canadian officials say efforts have been made to maintain engagement with the US and prevent another diplomatic disaster. The NSPCC has welcomed the Prime Minister's decision to launch a national inquiry into grooming gangs, but warned action must not be delayed. The Chief Executive says survivors have waited too long for justice. Sir Keir Starmer is understood to have U-turned on the decision after reading a major report into the scandal, which is set to expose institutional failings and warn that white British girls were ignored for fear of racism. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper will give a common statement tomorrow, with Casey's full report expected to be published at the same time. And a manhunt for a gunman who shot 2 politicians in the US state of Minnesota has entered its second day. Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were both killed in their home in the city of Minneapolis. Authorities say Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were also shot at their home a few miles away, but they are being treated for their injuries. The state governor branded the attack a politically motivated assassination. The suspect, who has been identified as 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter, was posing as a police officer before the shooting and managed to escape on foot. You are up to date tonight. I hope you have a very good evening.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to Ben Leo's Tonight, late edition. All the front pages are in. Let's get a recap of the headlines tomorrow, starting with the Daily Telegraph. Trump vetoed plan to kill the Iranian leader. So the President of the United States, Donald Trump, he turned down the chance, or at least refused to approve an attack on the Iranian premier in a bid to avoid wider conflict with Tehran. The Daily Express: say sorry for delay in sex gangs probe. Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has been told to apologise for repeatedly snubbing demands for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. The latest call, Nigel Farage made the call today to the Prime Minister. The Express is leading on calls from Kemi Badenoch, saying the PM had waited 6 months for the probe that was needed. He would say, and I'm sure Bill Rammell would argue this as well, that he was waiting, of course, for Baroness Casey's review, which is probably out tomorrow. The Daily Mail: Keir Starmer in full retreat over grooming gangs. After inquiry U-turn, he now orders a probe by Britain's FBI, the National Crime Agency. And at the top there, a Daily Mail comment on the Lucy Letby situation. The drumbeat of doubts over her conviction have grown so loud that justice now demands an urgent resolution. Maybe we'll discuss that, panel. The Times. Donald Trump says full might of the US ready for conflict. President Trump has said America could become involved in the war between Iran and Israel, and if they did so, they would have massive might and massive strength to retaliate against Iran. The Sun newspaper, great story, love this. Bullying probe at BBC Breakfast, exclusive, showing crisis. According to The Sun, there's such a toxic atmosphere at BBC Breakfast between Naga Manchetti and Charlie Stayett, and also an executive, that complaints have been made and there are HR meetings underway. The Guardian. Israel and Iran broaden war as G7 leaders seek a ceasefire. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer's just touched down in Calgary ahead of the G7 meeting. We'll be going live to our political editor, Christopher Hope, very shortly to get the latest on that. The Daily Mirror. Israel and Iran on the brink. World crisis. Both sides are vowing revenge after a day of terrifying missile attacks. And an interesting story here. Skydiving gift ends in tragedy. I was just reading this before we came back on air. A British lady, Belinda Taylor, has died on a parachute jump, bought by a present from her boyfriend. The chute, unfortunately, and the backup didn't trigger, and she lost her life, sadly. The Metro. You'll pay a heavy price. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu is warning Tehran that they will pay a massive price over the deaths of civilians and children, including 5 Ukrainian refugees. And the RAF on standby to defend Israel as conflict with Iran escalates. The UK is prepared to support defence of Israel, despite fears British forces could be dragged into a Middle East war. Would you at home, viewers, would you support the UK getting involved in this chaos in the Middle East? Right, let's go live to Canada, where the Prime Minister is in Calgary ahead of the G7 Leaders Summit, and our man on the ground, GBNews political editor Christopher Hope, is there with the latest. Chopper, good to see you. Oh, you're on the move. Where are you exactly and what's going on?
Hi Ben, yeah, I'm on the bus here heading from Calgary or Banff Airport, or Calgary Airport, if I should say, on the way to Kananaskis, where the G7 is being held, where Keir Starmer has touched down here. He's now on the way there too. Big challenge for him though, this whole G7 meeting is all really about war in the Middle East and trying to bring that tension down. He has, of course, sent RAF Typhoons to the region to provide contingency support for UK assets there. He's urging de-escalation. He may face some tough choices in coming weeks because, of course, the UK did support, back in April and October last year, Israel as it defended itself against Iran. He says it's a fast-moving situation. He won't say if he'll do it again, but if the UK does step in and support Israel, we then could become targets for Iran. It's a very high-stakes situation. He stopped over on the way to Calgary, the Prime Minister, to meet with Mark Carney, who's the Canadian PM. They both agreed they can work together to try and de-escalate this crisis in the Middle East. They got on well. They are both of the same kind of political ilk. They also, in a positive way, talked more about this Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, this boost for Brexit Britain if we can do a deal with this wider Pacific Trading Partnership. He said, Mr. Carney told the UK PM, Sir Keir Starmer, that he will do a deal, will try and make sure that he can ensure that that deal is agreed by the Canadian Parliament shortly. On his agenda here at the G7 is meetings with all the world leaders. We haven't yet got a list of them. We're never told them until they have happened. But one area they're looking at is small boats, talking more about small boats. So Keir Starmer told us he will be meeting with France's Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Friedrich Merz, and Italy's Giorgia Meloni to talk more about that. He has said on the way to the G7 that there's much greater cooperation, he says, in northern France, despite the fact we have filmed lack of cooperation with the French police. It's an issue he has raised before with Macron. He says he'll raise it again. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. But really the talks in G7, it comes at a good time for world leaders. It's all about the Middle East and calming that down. I should also say that Ukraine is also on the agenda, and President Zelensky is here too from that country.
Chopper, thank you very much. Just very quickly on the grooming gang situation. I think Baroness Casey's report is due out tomorrow. Is it convenient for the Prime Minister to be in Canada right now when that's dropping in the UK, considering the big consequences it will have on, I mean, the nation, but indeed the government as well, Labour particularly?
Well, you might say that. We're not expecting him back in the UK until Wednesday afternoon, probably after PMQs has happened, so he won't be held to account in Parliament about that. But we are expecting Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, to give a statement tomorrow in the House of Commons. We're also expecting the entire Louis Casey report to be published. And when that's published, that will be the first submission on a national stage about the scale of the grooming gang scandal. There's nowhere to hide from. It should go into some detail about the scale and almost support the reporting by our colleague Charlie Peters, who found evidence that it happened in as many as 50 towns across the country. So for the first time, I think the government will admit on a national scale tomorrow in terms that this is a national scandal, and we'll see further how that plays out. As you say there, the front page is saying, why hasn't the PM apologised? Back in January, when I asked him about this in a hospital, he told me, didn't he, that it's a far-right issue. He accused politicians of jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Well, he's been on a long journey since then to this point. To be fair to the Prime Minister, though, he does like detail and evidence first. Yeah. After we pushed hard at it with GBNews, he did commission, didn't he, that review by Louis Casey. There is an audit, and based on that, he's read every single word of that review. He's ordered this national inquiry.
Christopher, thank you very much. Get yourself on that Chinook next time. A bit more exciting than a bus. Thanks, Chopper. Right, I'm joined now by my panel for Ben Leo Tonight Late Edition, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell, GBNews contributor Will Kingston, and the comedian and former headliner Paul Cox. Paul, welcome along, my friend.
Thank you, Ben. I'm so good to be here.
Delighted. I can see you're absolutely
genuinely
buzzing.
Delighted to be here. I haven't got any of the other problems with me, so it's just you sensible chaps.
Of course you are. I believe you. Should we look at the Daily Mail front page? Lucy Letby, the story rolls on, doesn't it? I mean, the comment from the Mail is that the drumbeat of doubts over Letby's conviction have grown so loud that justice now demands an urgent resolution one way or another. Let me get the thoughts of all of you on the Letby situation. Will, what do you think of Lucy Letby? Is there concern there about the conviction?
No, not really. I think the overwhelming evidence points to her being guilty. I do find it very odd that the Daily Mail has picked this up as a real kind of case for them to pursue. I find it very odd that GBNews contributor Peter Hitchens has made it like one of the great causes in his late career to pursue. I struggle with it a bit, to be honest.
Yeah, David Davis as well, big advocate, Bill Rammell, of Letby's conviction.
And that's one of the things that's persuaded me. I think there are more and more questions about this conviction. And I think we are moving to a situation where there ought to be a retrial. And David Davis, party politics aside, I've got a lot of time and respect for him. Yeah. And he has got incredibly involved in this, and he's convinced that, at the very least, the conviction was unsafe. So, you know, I think the authorities do need to look at it again.
Paul, any thoughts on this?
Well, I think my first thought is Chopper's got the best job on the channel. He's not worried about Starmer gallivanting around the world, is he? But if he's got the best job, I might have the most difficult job in trying to make this amusing and entertaining in some way. Look, the Lucy Letby thing, I agree with you both, because Will's right. The overwhelming evidence suggests, and I've spoken to people about this, people, big GBNews supporters that you might think would like this to be wrong in some way, who just cannot see that it's wrong. Also, Peter Hitchens and David Davis, I think they're both incredibly respectable people on either side of the political spectrum in many ways. And I find it very difficult to believe that both of those men would fight this cause without any just cause to do so. So, I mean, at the very heart of this are dead babies.
Yeah, I agree. I listened to a podcast with Christopher Snowden arguing that Lucy Letby was guilty, the IEA's Christopher Snowden and Hitchens on the other, and coming out of that, I just could not come to any other conclusion. Then, despite the fact that all the evidence is technically circumstantial, like the statistical probability of her being guilty is, you know, we're getting into mathematically stupid territory for her to be considered innocent.
I would say, however, though, that it's not impossible, is it?
It's not impossible, no. But that's not the standard in a criminal trial.
No, exactly. So the standard would be to prove that the original trial was in some way wrong. And I don't think... Well, I've not seen anything yet, but I'm just not qualified to do so. Yeah. I can thoroughly believe that the justice system would hate for this to be wrong, and that makes me sad.
I agree with that.
Do you want to talk very quickly, something that you probably can make light of, Paul, is the story on the front page of the Sun newspaper, absolute chaos of BBC Breakfast. Of course, it would never happen at GB News, Paul.
Never.
There's bullying claims in the newsroom on BBC Breakfast, and apparently the atmosphere between the host, Naga Manchetti, and Charlie Stayat is frosty, to say the least, and apparently one of the BBC execs is accused of being slightly tyrannical, which, I mean, I think that's part of the course for managers, isn't it? But
well, we've all worked in television, haven't we? And we can imagine that that's true. But this is Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby all over again. This is too much for me to take, Ben. I can't believe what's happening. Manchetti and Charlie. No. Have you seen these two? You'd have thought they'd get on like a house on fire. But perhaps that's what it is now. Perhaps it's burning down over there. I don't care. is the main sort of... I've tried to muster up some caring, but I don't care too much about it.
All right, here's a question then.
Yeah.
Does the BBC have an issue with just drama? Just,
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. You don't have to put anything after issue.
I have an issue.
The BBC does have an issue, and they are constantly virtue signalling to us like they are... BBC Verify scares me. It's the most sinister part of any television in the UK whatsoever. They verify their own stories, and if you don't agree with them and pay their licence fee, then you can go to prison. So they're the judge, the jury and the execution.
Well, Paul, answer the question I posed in the last hour, which is, why is it that it is always these leftist media organisations that promote kindness and tolerance and diversity and all that sort of good stuff, they always turn out to be the ones that have the rubbish, awful, toxic culture?
Well, I think because... irrespective of left and right, all humans are the same. And there is an element of virtue signalling on the left that there maybe isn't on the right, but I wouldn't say that we're... I mean, Bill's been shaking his head at you.
Well, that wouldn't be the first time.
I don't want to start any trouble.
I'm disputing the fact that the BBC is a leftist organisation. Sorry,
if you're on the left, you don't see it.
No, and people on the right have criticised the BBC, people on the left have criticised the BBC. I still think it is something that's worth preserving within our country.
OK, before we go to the break, I will say there was a Freedom of Information request a few years ago. The most popular paper ordered by the BBC across all its sites was The Guardian.
The Guardian.
There you go, Bill.
Right, back in a tick. There's some breaking news with Rachel Reeves. Apparently she's plotting a budget tax raid on dividends. Stick with us. Ben Leo tonight, late edition.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, there's a reason it's called school term, and that is all those little kids should be at school, not elsewhere. Now, I know a lot of people find that difficult to comprehend because they're thinking, well, that doesn't suit me and it's cheaper to go then and whatever it is. But in my whole life, my parents would never have said, take 2 weeks off school or take a week off school. No. So I find this very, very hard to... It just shouldn't be part of the equation. You're at school. You're not on holiday.
Well, lots of parents would say, wouldn't they? They can't afford to take their children in half term because the flights have tripled.
Totally agree, but we couldn't afford it. So what did we do? We went to the local beaches in Ireland. That's where we went. So that's how you had your holiday.
So you just forego a foreign holiday.
Hold on, so the prices are going up. They make them more expensive
during the
summer holidays.
So
they take them out of school. So you get parents that will take them out of school during school term because the prices are so expensive during summer holidays, which makes it unfair.
We're not stupid. We understand that. But the law says you have to be at school.
Right, I agree with that. But don't you think it's disgusting that the price is so much more expensive, and that's the reason people are considering it?
It's not really relevant, is what I'm saying, because the rules say you're not available for these holidays, so you're at school.
Right.
But the companies shouldn't be doing that, should they?
Look...
I don't think they should. I don't think they should be allowed.
I agree. I think it's
the only rule that comes first is that is school term. School term means that's what the law requires you to do. Be at school, not be on a beach in Ibiza.
But the temptation is there if it's so much cheaper and you couldn't afford to go during the summer holidays. I've never done that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, the late edition. I was just commenting on the lovely graphics I did last night, and I'm still impressed. I'm easily pleased. Joining us now is political commentator David Moore to go through some of the stories in the papers tomorrow. David, good evening to you. Thank you for your company. I want to talk, David, about the Daily Mail front page. Keir Starmer in full retreat over grooming gangs. After the U-turn last night, of course, off the back of his comments in January saying calls for a national inquiry were some sort of far-right bandwagon. Anyway, he's now got the NCA involved, the National Crime Agency, Britain's FBI. They'll be launching a separate investigation.
For years, Keir Starmer has tried to push this under the carpet. Any suggestion of a national inquiry, it's called far-right pandering. He has thrown that insult at all of his opponents who have said they should have a full national inquiry. And after pressure from the leader of the opposition, the Conservatives, and also Rupert Lowe, who have been obviously organising their own inquiry, he's finally buckled and decided to reverse the stance. But this is failing victims. This is a good example of him just trying to U-turn to get him out of this mess. But I don't think it will, because it will not be thorough. It'll be marking his own homework, and we all know that this Labour government is certainly complicit.
OK, David, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell is lacing up his gloves as you speak, and he's ready to give you a whack. Bill?
I didn't hear all of that, but look, you know, hearing Kemi Badenoch demanding an apology because there hasn't been a statutory inquiry. The Tories had 14 years to bring in a statutory inquiry and never went near it once. But I made the point earlier, what really concerns me, and, you know, the decision has been made now to have an inquiry, but what's desperately important is that the recommendations for change that have already happened are not kicked into the long grass, because statutory inquiries take 5 to 10 years to deliver results. That's the history within our legal system. And my worry is that this can lead to further delays for change.
David, your thoughts on that?
Well, that doesn't stand up, because the many Labour councils who have tried to push this in the long grass are now panicking because their leader's now U-turning. And we've seen this countless councils saying there'll be no inquiry and we don't want this inquiry. And there are lots of them are Labour councils. And so, in fact, I don't think the Labour argument there stands up by saying, oh, well, the Conservatives have 14 years, because it's been many Conservative figures who have been pushing for this inquiry for a long time now.
David, can I talk to you about a separate story? Rachel Reeves, apparently, in the Telegraph tomorrow. Not sure if you've seen it, but it's breaking in the last hour or so. She's plotting a budget tax raid on dividends. So, yes, the Chancellor was understood to have drawn up a menu of tax increases, including a raid on dividends, suggested by Angela Rayner in that infamous leaked memo from a few months back.
So, of course, Labour are trying to fill yet another black hole, which cannot be filled as long as the state it keeps expanding. They want to essentially abolish the £500 dividend tax-free allowance to raise $300 million. That's going to get lost in the pot anyway. So this is this notion of aligning dividends and income tax rates like PAYE. But the problem with this is going to attack entrepreneurs. It's going to attack small businesses. It's going to attack people that work hard, who are buckling under tax pressure already and going to face even more taxes after the national insurance rises. So this is really bad news for especially small businesses, but everyone, regardless of their income.
Paul, what's your take? Let's say going after entrepreneurs, business owners, tax on dividends?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement on that.
You agree with the tax raid on?
No, I don't agree with the tax raid. I fully expect Labour to do that. I mean, I don't think there's any surprise in that whatsoever. Their political bent is to do so. I agree with Bill on the raping gang stuff, in the fact that this is not a Tory and Labour issue. This has been around for a long time. The fact that politics has got involved in any way, shape or form is a scandal, and I understand exactly what our contributor is saying there with regards to Labour councillors now being worried, because the reason they're worried is because votes will depend on this, and this happened within Labour constituencies more often than not. I think you'd agree, Bill. And as a result now, I think Keir Starmer finds himself in quite a bind. I think there's been quite a lot of sort of deliberate naivete with regards to the support of Labour and Keir Starmer on this, because he's been politically duplicitous throughout. He has swung from sort of Enoch Powell with, you know, we're all strangers on this island, with everybody's far right if they want an inquiry. No idea what Keir Starmer stands for, and now he's asking for a national inquiry, which we all want. I think we all want. But I'm very cynical as to why he wants it now.
But in the previous part of the show, I was rightly pointing to the fact that as long ago as 2012, as Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer gripped this issue. He changed the prosecutorial guidelines so that the grooming gangs could be tackled. And, you know, Andrew Norfolk, who is the preeminent journalist, sadly just died, who exposed the grooming scandal for the Times newspaper, he credited Keir Starmer with really understanding it, listening and responding.
Bill, I'll respond. David, I'll get back to you just 1 second. Let me just respond to Bill on this. I'll respond to you the same way I did at 9 o'clock, which is, if Keir Starmer rightfully knew how serious the grooming rape gang situation was, and he did because he was head of the CPS at the time, why did he delay so much? Why did he call people far-right bandwagon jumpers for calling for an inquiry, if he knew it?
He's actually been focused on implementing the recommendations from the J Review, which are critically important to actually tackle the problem. I'm still sceptical as to what a national inquiry will actually bring to the table. One, we're still going to be here in 5 or 10 years' time awaiting its outcome. And two, what is it going to tell us that we don't already know about what needs to be done?
The inquiry?
Yeah. I think it's going to tell us everything.
It would expose the rot, the absolute disgusting, vile rot at the heart of the establishment, the institutional cover-up. David, maybe you can answer that. What will a national inquiry tell us that we don't already know? Bill Rammell asks.
Well, I think the problem is here, you know, like we've just heard just now, it's the constant U-turning, not knowing what we're going to have to do. It doesn't need a national inquiry now. It does need a national inquiry. I'm worried that after this declaration of a national inquiry, you know, how thorough it's going to be. Because we have, you know, these local probes that are confirmed, but there need to be the powers of a statutory national inquiry allowed to be delivered and not thwarted, and that's the worry that a lot of people have. So this U-turn after months of resistance, going from calling it far right to only accept the Casey report audit, and the rising pressure from, like I say, from many Conservative figures, you know, we're going to see. Well, let's see what happens. Really, it's certainly worrying.
OK, David Moore. Sorry, Bill.
But Ben, quick. We already know that this was an abhorrent scandal of predominantly Pakistani men targeting white working class girls.
We don't know that, because Emily Maitlis said to Rupert Lowe, you're a racist for saying it's Pakistani. So some people, whether they're being dense or just lying, don't know. They don't know.
Well, that's her view, but it is most certainly the case that is what has been happening. We know that has happened, and we know that authorities of various shapes and forms didn't do what they needed to do because they feared being accused of...
Give me a second. Bill, this is the most epic gaslighting, in that your side of politics and the side of the media which supports your side of politics has said that has not been the case for decades now, and to turn around in the last 10 minutes and say suddenly, well, we've been saying this all along, is just not the case.
Well, this has been on this channel for the last 6 months.
Exactly right, on this channel. Exactly right, on this channel.
Saying exactly what I've just said, and, you know, Keir Starmer in 2012 explicitly said that.
OK, David, thank you for hanging on whilst we bicker amongst ourselves. Really appreciate your company, and hopefully see you next week. Thank you, mate. David Moore, political commentator. Right, have we got time for that video very quickly? Let's take a look. It's Father's Day today. Happy Father's Day. Prince Harry's just uploaded this to the Sussex social media sites. Have a look. Oh, sorry, Meghan has. Take a look.
May you have auspiciousness and causes of success. May you have the confidence to always do your best. May you take no effort in your being generous, sharing what you can, nothing more, nothing less. May you know the meaning of the word happiness. May you always lead from the beating in your chest.
Do we have any viewers left?
Have you all gone home? Have you gone to bed, dear viewers?
It's lacking in emotional intelligence of understanding how you're going to be perceived.
Paul, your take?
Yeah, well, exactly that. I mean, it's terrible, isn't it? I mean, I'm a dad, so I've kind of enjoyed Father's Day. Kids don't really enjoy Father's Day, do they? Just bung something at you when you get up in the morning, go, there you go, thanks for all the stuff you do for me. But I'm just glad I haven't got Meghan Markle in my life. That would be terrible. I'd hate a video like that to go out. Harry is... Sorry, mate. You've got lots of problems.
What did you get for Father's Day?
Well, I didn't. Just
Let's
got a card.
gifts.
I was going to go out with my daughter, but then a friend called up and said they'd like to go to the cinema, so they went to the cinema. I didn't go with them, and I basically spent the afternoon on my own, Ben.
Oh,
that sounds great.
Well,
yeah, it was pretty lovely.
To be honest, sounds like my day as well.
I told you earlier, I got 2 very nice bottles of French red wine, which I know you're going to hate.
Should have been English sparkling, Bill. Should have been English sparkling. Right, back in just a tick after the break, including Donald Trump. He's due to land in Calgary, Canada, for the G7 leaders meeting. Sir Keir Starmer is there, of course, as well. So we'll see if we can go live there as soon as we get him. And, of course, more front pages. Back in just a tick with Ben Leo tonight, late edition.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. As we transition into a new week, there will often be quite settled conditions around for many of us, and even out there at the moment it is relatively calm. Plenty of clear spells and dry conditions for the vast majority, a few mist and fog patches. The same can't be said for Western Scotland, though, where rain will be arriving during the second half of the night. This could turn heavy over the hills for a time. Temperatures, though, will be holding up in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Monday morning. We do, though, have that rain in play for the far north and west of Scotland first thing on Monday. The heaviest pulses will be in the early hours, and it will tend to ease as we head throughout the day, but still fairly damp and grey to come here, and quite a brisk breeze around the coasts and hills as well. Some of that rain could just flirt with the far west of Northern Ireland, but parts of County Down probably seeing a decent amount of sunny spells, and the bulk of England and Wales will also see some sunshine pretty much from the word go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. There'll be some fair weather cloud bubbling up in places that might make the sunshine hazy at times, particularly for southern areas of England, but it will stay dry, fine and pleasant. Temperatures will also be up tomorrow compared to the values we've seen around today, so more widely across central eastern areas, seeing the mid-20s of degrees Celsius. Even 20 degrees, 22 for parts of Northern Ireland, central and eastern Scotland, more around mid-teens for the far northwest. And that's because we see another weather front pushing its way in as we move overnight into the start of Tuesday. This could bring some stronger winds first thing in the morning, potentially close to gale strength around the far north of Scotland. And there'll also be this band slowly slipping its way south-eastwards. That rain will tend to weaken throughout the day, and there'll be some sunny spells developing behind that, but the most prolonged sunshine right throughout Tuesday will again be down towards the southeast. But the sunshine looks like it will develop more widely across all areas of the UK as we head towards the middle of the week, and those temperatures are also going to be climbing. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Ben Leo tonight, late edition. We're going live now to Canada, or recent pictures rather, of Donald Trump landing in Calgary, Canada. Let's take a listen.
Tremendous success with a fantastic audience. It was supposed to rain. They gave it a 100% chance of rain, and it didn't rain at all. It was beautiful. And so I asked if they gave it 100% chance, right? 100% it was going to rain like crazy, and it didn't rain at all. How did they predict 100 years out and 50 years out or 200 years out? They didn't do too well, the weather people, last night, but it was beautiful.
Prime Minister Netanyahu
on the same page concerning how to deal with Iran? Well, we get along very well, and I will tell you that I think I have great respect for each other.
Can you give us a leader or solution?
Go ahead, what?
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what you're doing to try to de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel?
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal. What? So the protesters, if we didn't have the National Guard on call and ready, they would rip Los Angeles apart. They come and they check and they say, is the National Guard going to be there? And if the National Guard's being there, they don't even show up.
Have you asked Israel to pause their airstrikes into Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that.
Mr. President, do you expect to have some trade deals announced at the G7 summit coming up?
Look, we have our trade deals. All we have to do is send a letter. This is what you're going to have to pay. But I think we'll have a few new trade deals, yeah.
Will the U.S. continue to support the defense of Israel? Will the U.S. continue to support Israel in its defense?
We do, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
OK, just to clarify, of course, that was President Donald Trump in the White House, outside the White House, just before going to Canada. We're going live now. These are the live pictures in Calgary of Donald Trump's plane landing. It's the chopper. It's Marine One, I think they call it, don't they? Marine One, the chopper, waiting for the president to leave. Who's this coming out now? So the president, there he is. Yep. He's landed in Calgary. He's coming out now of Marine One. For the G7 Leaders Summit, he'll be meeting Sir Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, Giorgia Meloni. A salute there for the officers, for the military personnel. Paul, he was saying there, the president, that the US, the United States, would continue to support Israel in this conflict with Iran. Would you support the UK getting involved? Because Sir Keir Starmer and indeed Rachel Reeves on the front page of the Times tomorrow is, again, refusing to rule out UK involvement.
I don't really support it, to be honest, Ben. I think we're already supporting it via the US. The US clearly are supporting Israel, and the UK will always support the US. We keep saying, and in some of the papers it says that we're not going to war. We're involved in a lot of wars that we're not involved in at the moment, and I think it is a worry. I think we're blessed that we don't live in the Middle East, is what I would say. It's very easy to say on this side of the Middle East or in the US to make decisions about this, but every time I see the pictures of bombs raining down, whether it's on countries that are led by people I disagree with or not, I find it harrowing viewing.
The president there, I'm not sure where he's going. He left Marine One, the helicopter, is now on Air Force One. Maybe he realised he was with Mark Carney and decided to go home. Right, I'm being told from the powers that be that he's still in America. There's Stephen Miller, the chief of staff of the White House, a character in his own right, a rising star, in fact. So they are still in America. They are heading to Calgary now. Apologies for that little piece of misinformation, Bill.
But do you know what? I lived and worked in Iraqi Kurdistan for 18 months, right? And I need no persuading about the nefariousness of the Iranian regime. But I am not convinced that what Israel is doing, one, will help tackle the nuclear problem, and two, that it won't actually contribute to a wider war in the Middle East with huge consequences, apart from anything else, economic, that will hit us.
Will the UK get involved? And if we do we not need a vote akin to Libya, which Parliament turned down?
I hope the UK won't get involved. If it does happen, and it could happen because the Iranians actually decide to target UK military assets, then in those circumstances you have to react straight away, and that's subsequently backed up by a vote within Parliament. But I hope it doesn't happen.
Bill, here's my problem. For generations now, or at least one generation, politicians of your era said that it would be intolerable for Iran to get nuclear weapons. And for generations, those same politicians have done nothing.
It's not true.
They've done
a nuclear deal that Obama negotiated.
Yeah, and look how that turned out.
It was working, and Trump withdrew from it.
No, rubbish. It wasn't working, and that is why they are now closer than ever to getting nuclear weapons. That is the reality. And the fact of the matter is the US has not had the guts to do anything, and other Western countries have not had the guts to do anything, and Israel have done the Western world a favour by trying to actually tackle the Iranian regime in a way that no one else wanted to.
Do you know what? I really fear that the attack by Israel has more to do with Netanyahu's personal situation, where he's being tried for corruption, than it does to the needs.
That's playing the ball, not the man. The fact is, Iran cannot get the bomb. It is as simple as that, and they're now as close as ever to being able to do so.
Paul, before we go to the break, any jokes about nuclear war?
I don't have any jokes about nuclear war, Ben. Sorry, I'll try and think of some.
Well, on that bombshell, excuse the pun, we'll be going live after the break to a news story developing. Well, it's over the last 24 hours, actually. A manhunt is underway after a political leader in Minnesota was quite brutally shot dead and another wounded. More on that after the break. Ben Leo tonight, late edition.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If it's heat you're after, then the Mediterranean is the place to be over this forthcoming week. We are going to be seeing temperatures climb over the next few days. Worth noting that heat could spark off a few showers and thunderstorms in places, but generally there will be plentiful amounts of sunshine for many of these countries if you are heading out. The peak of the heat likely to be on Wednesday at this point, with inland areas in particular seeing 35 to 40 degrees Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, late edition. Let's get your latest news from America now. I'm joined by newspaper columnist Bob Weiner. Bob, good evening, well, good day to you in America. Should we start with this Minnesota situation? Just explain, please, for our British viewers who aren't up to date, there's a massive manhunt underway, isn't there? Because a political leader was, shot dead, actually, and somebody's been injured. Just explain, Bob, what's going on in Minnesota.
Yes, a state legislator, but they have the perpetrator's car, they have his houses, they have his name. He's tight. The net is tight now. And when law enforcement gets that much, they're close. So they will get him. This was a despicable act. Even Donald Trump put out how violence on either side is unacceptable. Finally, we get a right statement.
Even Donald
there.
Trump?
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to condemn a murder.
So there you go, Ben. Hey, by the way, Ben, I love your background. I looked you up, and you won the Young Reporter of UK's Young Journalist of the Year in 2014. I won the National Press Club's President's Award for recruiting young journalists. And we have 1,000 op-eds in top papers because of the young journalists who co-byline with me. So your passion for youth journalism and mine, I think, is something we're going to share, and I really appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Bob. I wasn't aware you were going to tell the nation I was Young Journalist of the Year, but I'm here for it. I appreciate it.
11 years ago, when you were just a cop.
Shameless. Bob, we have some live pictures of President Trump leaving Washington. Right. Let's take it. Here they are now. What's he going to be doing at the G7? What's he going to be talking about? What's top of mind for him, do you think?
Well, first of all, I heard some of your preliminaries. It's normal for the president, because I've been there in the White House for 6.5 years. It's normal for him to leave on Marine One to go to Andrews Air Force Base to go. So that's what you saw in moments ago. You saw him coming down from Marine One and then getting up on Air Force One. So that's right. He's going to the summit. He's going to the G7. You know, he promised 90 trade deals in 90 days, and he's got none. None. He's got the concept of a deal, like he had the concept of a plan on healthcare with China, and he's got nothing else going on, period. All he has is his own corrections of his own misstated, unscientifically drawn numbers that he put out there to scare people with. So I think, you know, the world and the G7, if this is going to be an economic talk, they look at him with views askance and smirks, and they do not respect him at all.
Bob, some people watching this might suggest you have Trump derangement syndrome. What's your response to that?
Actually, let me tell you that the latest polls show that he is 16 and 20 points underwater in all of the polling now, whether it's Quinnipiac or Harris. It's all the polling now shows him that. So if the election were held tomorrow, he and his team would lose big time. The problem is that the election is 1.5 years away, and he has a magical way of changing his words right at the end where he brings in the moderates and the independents with some waffly positions. And that's what he did last time. That's what he will do again. But right now, he is enormously underwater because of the harm that he did with Musk, the harm that he continues to do, and the economic disruptions to the world and people's 401ks with his trade deals that the stock market doesn't know what to do with.
Yeah, but I think I may suggest insiders, those who are close to the White House probably enjoyed that massive dip on the S&P and the markets and so on. Feel your boots and then turn it back turbo. Let's go up. Bob, can I ask you, please, what's the consensus? And by the way, sorry, you mentioned an election in 1.5 years. Are you talking about the midterms?
Right.
Right. Can I ask you, please?
That's dangerous to him because that's going to mean investigations. It's going to mean truth and fact will come back to life. Yeah. You just take that little thing that he just did at the airport. You know, on the science and the rain. I mean, really, is that how you're going to decide whether global warming is a fact or not? Because the weather report was wrong. So this guy is so off the charts. It's unbelievable.
I don't know. I quite like him, Bob. That's where we'll disagree. I quite like him from over in the UK. Bob, can I ask you, please? On a more serious matter, what's the perception of Donald Trump refusing to rule out American involvement in the Middle East, Iran, Israel? Because lots of people, for the likes of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, so on and so on, I can reel them off, they argue that the MAGA base voted President Trump in to not get involved in any of these foreign conflicts thousands of miles away. Why should, they didn't want it, they didn't vote for it. But now the door seems to be open to potential involvement. What is the perception and the will of the American people on this?
Well, I actually like what he's doing in Syria, giving that government and that historic culture a chance, as long as they don't turn to fascism and the kinds of torture of their citizens that the last guy did. So I like what he's doing with Syria. With Israel, very interesting. That conversation that he reported was a sure, go ahead, pushing away at the same time, saying he didn't give any blessing to it. He didn't have any. He wants Iran to believe he had no involvement in it. But if he said to Netanyahu on the phone, I just won't say we support it, but go ahead, I think that's what that call really was. And so it's very difficult situation. Israel has got to defend itself from the missiles and from all of the stuff that comes in and the kinds of tortures of October 6th and all of that. They have to do that. But at the same time, they've gone so far overboard. And I think there's some truth to what one of your panelists said a moment ago, that Netanyahu is trying to protect himself and he's got a corruption trial and he needs something active to make it look like he has a thing going on and it's a war that Israel believes in. So I think that's part of it. I think absolutely that's part of it.
Interesting. Bob, thank you so much for your company. Pleasure speaking to you. It's the first time I've had a chat with you and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. So thank you for your company stateside and hopefully we'll catch up next week. Cheers. Bob Weiner, newspaper columnist in the US. Panel, any Trump fans here or have you got TDS as well?
No, I quite like Trump. I like him for the entertainment value. I like to watch Bill when Trump's on the TV. That was fascinating watching Bill watch Trump.
What did he do? What were the facial expressions Bill was
He didn't look happy. But, I can understand it from a political perspective. I find him incredibly entertaining. Almost as good as Bob Weiner's wood panelling in his nuclear bunker there was impressive. I haven't seen anything like that. That was absolutely delicious. Lovely work, Bob.
I think it was Bob Weiner.
Well, sorry. See, I'm trying to make it comedic.
And that's low-hanging fruit,
but
as it were.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really have an issue with Trump because I see it purely from an entertainment perspective. Of course, he's mad as a box of frogs, but I enjoy that.
Yeah, he is. And look, I think Trump's an abomination. But I think your point, Ben, earlier is absolutely right. He was elected on a ticket of there will be no more wars. And his MAGA base are really getting angry.
Yeah, they are. They're not happy. They're not happy. Thank you, panel. Will, Bill, Paul, thank you for your company tonight. It's been an enjoyable night, to say the least. Hope you guys at home have enjoyed it. Don't forget, you can stay with us all day on GB News, not just on TV, but on radio and on your smart speaker. To listen to us on your smart speaker, just say, play GB News on TuneIn. That's all from me. I'll be back on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. You lucky so-and-sos covering Eamon on breakfast. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Next up, it's your weather. Hope you have a good week ahead, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Good night, sweet dreams.
Expect a warm front moving from the kitchen